Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by a lovely young man called Devon Webster. Devon is in Massachusetts, that's correct, isn't it? And we met each other through a 24-hour Zoom room called Heartfelt Presence that I volunteer into twice a week. It is a 3 principles-based coaching room, I suppose, for anybody to drop in and use. It's completely free of charge. And Devon is someone that's been in the room occasionally with me over the last 18 months, I suppose, maybe a little bit longer. And we've just had some really cool conversations. And I thought it would be wonderful if he came along and joined me today. So Devon, welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
No, you're more than welcome. I've really enjoyed sharing time with you in the room, both on a one-to-one basis when it's just been the pair of us, and the fun and ease that we've had, certainly in the last year or so, of bouncing ideas around, but also in your willingness to contribute with the group and the other people that are there, and just sharing what you see in a really gentle and authentic way. And this is partly bringing you on here was to thank you for that, but also because of the fun that we've had. I thought it might be interesting to see how this unfolds. But I would be really interested in what it was that caught your imagination with Heartfelt Presence and got you in there in the first place. And secondly, why it is somewhere that you enjoy hanging out.
It's a beautiful question. I am just a huge fan of human connection. So really anywhere where people are just showing up to, explore and experience life is something that I'm just always overjoyed to be a part of. And one of the other hosts, I got to know in person, and then I asked them, like, where do you go? Where do you meet people? And they said, well, I go to this place called Heartfelt Presence. And I didn't know anything about it, but I then discovered the 3 principles through it, which has been a huge part of my life, ever since. I mean, it's just such a fundamental understanding and, an all encompassing understanding of life. And my favorite aspect of it that has really just changed how I look at life is this quote from Sydney Banks, where he says, "The language of thought is logic, the language of consciousness is metaphor, and the language of mind is silence." And each of those is, again, just kind of like a fundamental component of the world that we experience. And to tie them all together into this form of the 3 principles has been just a way to perceive and interpret life. So there's kind of this, theosophical, to use a new word that I picked up from one of his books, understanding, which is kind of like the philosophy of your own experience, so to speak. That has been really enriching. And just the fact that the people who are on Heartfelt Presence are really there. I feel like a lot of interactions I have with people in my day-to-day life can lack a certain amount of presence. And, Heartfelt Presence is all about that. And it just allows for the social interactions you have there to be so dynamic when people are really showing up. So that's why I love it to pieces and go like as often as I can at this point.
Well, your enthusiasm for it is infectious. It is good, and I love the. I can only really speak for the sessions that I'm in, which are, I haven't really got any reference other than that. I've been to a few others while I was sort of finding my feet, seeing how it worked. But I think that the lovely bit about it is that no matter how wound up people are when they come in, they can very quickly calm themselves by being in a conversation or even listening to a conversation between other people that reminds them that they have that calmness inside them.
Yeah, the metaphor that I got from another one of the hosts recently is that a lot of people are revving their engine, myself included, with the brake on. And, there's this misunderstanding about the nature of thought and how we can use it. And when we're in the presence of other people who are in that space of just ease and calmness, every moment becomes like a micro reflection of, oh, I can take a little bit of a deeper breath, or like maybe there isn't such a reason to hold on so strongly to whatever it is that's showing up for me right now. And, I mean, humans are just gregarious animals, like we're social creatures. And the benefit of having that room that's available so often throughout the day where you can just pop in and get a totally different flavor at any given time. It's such a resource. Yeah, I use it a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. There are people that just literally dip their toe in occasionally and just go, okay, yeah, that's grounded me. I'm good. There's a potential danger in thinking that it's the room that grounds them rather than themselves. But that, with exploration and curiosity, I absolutely know that the people that are just dropping their toe in every now and again and getting a feel for things are absolutely fine, and they know it when they leave. They leave at a point that okay, I'm good to go again. Let's see what comes next. And yeah, you never quite know where the conversation is going to go, what the subject matter is going to be, and it doesn't matter because it all boils back down to realizing that safety net that we are potentially reaching out for is within us to start off with, and the revving of the engine, as you put it, is the direction our mind is running in that moment based on the thinking that it has, and with a fresh perspective of either not being able to share because other people are talking, but listening into what's going on and going, oh, that sounds familiar, or just getting lost in the other conversation to the point that, what was I getting upset? Why did I come in here?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it all kind of just unfolds in a beautiful way when there are people around who are in that feeling. It reminds you that that feeling is within. That's so true that, that it's a matter of going inside, which is something that I'm still like freshly understanding every day. But very much like the community there can remind us that we have that resource. And yeah, I mean, it's it's a gift, and it's with us all the time.
Another fun aspect of it for me is the diversity of the group. you never know who is going to be there, but the backgrounds, the locations people are coming in from are so very, very different. And sometimes that can look like it should clash. There should be jars in understanding for whatever reason. Doesn't really matter. But so often those things don't show up because everybody's there to support everybody else as a human being, not as whatever race or religion or gender they are. That's irrelevant. They're just there with a bunch of other human beings trying to do the best for each other. And I think that really helps bring out the best in people and hopefully allows them to go off into their day reminding themselves that they can be that for everybody outside the room too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the commonality between us, which, the three principles understanding points to all the time, like we're all deriving from the same universal mind. And then we have our own, personal mind. It's a really just a connecting experience. And you find yourself like internally resourcing and drawing from parts of yourself that you I didn't even know were there. To speak just for myself, like I'll just be able to be present in that group and show up, and it's a beautiful thing.
That's cool. Now, this isn't a trick question. I'm going to. You've already quoted a bit of Sid to us, which is lovely. And I, being dyslexic, struggle with quoting things directly. So mine's going to be a paraphrase. But Sid was always encouraging to people to share what they know. And that's all we can do. If we think there's something lacking and we're trying to share that, then it's going to feel uncomfortable, feel not as authentic as it might. It's with the best of intentions, but it might not be there. So with Sid's full blessing here of we can only share what we know, okay? You mentioned the business between universal mind and personal mind, and I'd be really interested in Devon's perspective of that as you see it today, knowing that will have evolved over time to this point and it will continue to evolve in the future. So this is just as you see it today. That's it. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, with Sid's blessing. That made me laugh.
Like I can give that away.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as a quick tangent, I feel like Sid gave his blessing so widely, really lived in such a way that he just was a generous human. And I've gotten so much from that as an example. My understanding of universal mind and personal mind right now, what's coming to me is that, I'm going to use a form-based metaphor that we have, two eyes and a frame of view, a perspective on the world, and I can't see behind myself. But in a way, I kind of can, because I've experienced the world around me and, oriented myself in the world, and the world is sort of just designed and constructed in such a way that it just sort of works. There's a certain amount of faith I have that I'm okay. I don't have to look behind myself every 2 seconds to make sure that that's true. There's a certain amount of flow and pattern and rhythm and cadence of just the way that the world unfolds. And I'm even sensing it in the intonation I give the words that are coming out of my mouth right now. Like, there's an amount of personal mind that's experiencing my experience. And then there's an amount of universal mind, which is the world just holding space for all of that to exist. So that's what comes to mind, personal mind from universal mind as I share right now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And thank you for being prepared to be semi-put on the spot and not be freaked
Yeah, I
out by
like
it.
it.
So thank you for that. Um, hmm. What would given the direction you've been looking for a while now, how would you say coming into this understanding, exploring it, being curious about it, feeling excited and playful with it, how much would you say that is making its way out into the world through you? How does it show up day to day as Devon wandering around the world?
That's a good question. I would say that the way the understanding I've been cultivating is manifesting in my life uh, is a lot more coming back to, I want to say, like, the words that come to mind are like wisdom and faith. And that being said, like, I'm very cognizant of the fact that this understanding is, I think they call it like before thought, beyond words. Um, and the reason why I bring that up in tandem with the words that I just said is because the the understanding that comes from these perspectives is one that kind of allows me to feel like the world is just in motion and
Mm-hmm.
things are, that word unfolding I always love, because I get this like origami metaphor, and I'm using my hands here, where like the center is like constantly being revealed, like more and more pages are like coming off of, covering something. And um I'll quote another friend of mine who just, well, paraphrase, I guess, who says like wonder is this essential quality of life and curiosity. And there's honestly just a lot less fear in my life now that I have these understandings of um, thought, consciousness, and mind, where those principles are, you know, undergirding my whole experience and just the way that the world works. And so when I don't get so caught up in the negative thinking or the worried thinking, when I come back inside to that serenity, I'm just feeling more at home. And I'm even experiencing that freshly right now. Like, that's another thing that's so valuable about this experience, about the presencing of heartfelt presence,
Mm-hmm.
is like every moment is like, oh yeah, that's right, that's right. Because there is a way in which you feel like I've been here before, but you really never have, because this moment is so fresh. And that is very much the case in my experience now, where, like, moment to moment, it's just right here, right now.
Mm. Mm, thank you. That's cool. Would you say your friends and family have noticed a difference in you?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, that's a fun question. Um, yeah, definitely, some of them who are paying attention will, say that I'm a little bit like less reactive. I'm a little bit more responsive, and they would say that I'm, you know, in silence a little bit more, like taking more time to respond to things. Um, yeah, that's a fun question. I might ask them
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's no harm in doing that. I'm going to flip it on its head now and ask the opposite. Have you noticed a difference in the people around you, or your perception of the people around them, in the way you're experiencing them now?
That one's much easier to answer. The answer is like that one's like an emphatic yes. Like maybe it's the self view or like the myopic lens or whatever that makes that first question a little harder.
Mhm.
But this one like is much easier. Like I feel like my perception of people has like just completely revolutionized because I'm so much more engaged and curious and uh you know just holding space more for them to manifest, like the understanding that their own wisdom is abundantly present in every situation. I've had um relationships with people where now there's more comfort and they can just like openly express emotions that before maybe they wouldn't have. Like they'll come to me, and this has happened with like several of my friends. They'll just be able to cry. And, I'm just um coming from that place of faith personally and knowing that they're coming from their own wisdom and they're just processing the world as it unfolds. And um I feel very confident that my experience of life is is very different for a lot of those reasons.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool. What are you imagining is next for you?
Oh, yes. What's next for me is bringing more of this to more people.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm currently working on establishing like my own groups
Mhm.
because there's um I think just the biggest gift you can give to the world is just being your authentic self and like bringing whatever that is, your own unique flavor to the collective too. And my mother would say it takes all kinds. And my typing is that of like being just a host. So I aspire to become part of Heartfelt Presence as a host now that I've been a guest for so long.
Mhm.
And I'm working on designing my own groups, which I'm, you know, tentatively titling Showing Up, because there's this way where I've found that in my life, the more I show up and just bring myself to the moment, the more I notice all these ways that things want to just domino effect from the stuff that arises. And so I want to bring that, as I feel like you are in this conversation, like the questions that are coming up feel like they're the ones that just kind of percolate and populate, and there they are. So why not ask?
Mhm.
Um, that's what I want to bring to more people, because um, it's funny. My brother is currently working on his PhD in social policy, and one of the papers that he just released to the family is about social isolation and loneliness, and how it's like an epidemic in our country, but really, I think like most first world countries,
Mhm.
and maybe more. I don't know. I could used to be a little more worldly, as an aside, but the main point is that there's something about our current culture where I feel like there's been a lot of separating,
Mhm.
and I feel like there's really a transition happening globally, where the ability to reconnect and sort of like find your tribe is more possible than ever, as long as you are like putting that out there on offer. And the people who catch it will go, wait a minute, like that feels really good. So right now, I have two people in my life who, like, I've never been able to say this before, but I feel like they're really like, one's a brother, one's a sibling. Like they really feel so deeply connected, to where like I can just very much be myself. And that's something that they can hold.
Mhm.
Um, so I want that to be an experience that more people have. And, I think there's something that's really potent about group dynamics, um, for all the reasons that, you and I have experienced in Heartfelt Presence, where, like you said, like sometimes they'll come with something really intense and then it'll just ebb and flow away. And sometimes someone will really like spring onto the scene and they have something to bring up. And, the group just like a stone thrown into water, like the ripples happen and then it settles.
Mhm.
So, you know, I don't exactly know how my group will come into the world yet, but I've been dreaming about it. So a lot of
Nice.
me is interested in it.
Awesome. Awesome. No, well, I think it's uh, it's a wonderful idea. I also think the title's perfect for you, because
Mm.
that is exactly what I know is going to happen when you show up um, uh, in Heartfelt Presence. Excuse the pun. You are literally just showing up and with curiosity, and let's see what we can learn here. And that feeling's infectious. People latch onto it in a way of going, oh, right, what's he seeing that I'm not? Which gets their curiosity going and turns their light on as well. Now, as you and I both know, that's got nothing to do with us showing up in that space and in that way. But it certainly helps by setting an example of what's possible. Inspiration is something that's being drawn out. We think people are inspiring. No, we're seeing a reflection of what's possible for us. And the more opportunity there is for people to experience that in light-hearted, fun, curious ways, the more ease they're going to travel through life with, and the more they'll be showing up, shining a light for others to get a glimpse of, get a reflection of what's possible for them. So no, I think it's a beautiful idea. Well done, you. Let
Thank
me
you.
know. Let me know
Yes.
when it happens, and I'll be there.
All right. That sounds great.
Albeit virtually. I think it's a bit of a commute for me.
No kidding. Yeah. There will be both. There will be in person and there will be
Yeah.
virtual, because there's pros and cons to each. But yeah, you pointed to two things that were interesting to me. One of them is that the idea of showing up is just kind of like that's just life.
Mhm.
Like it's not the group. It's just the way that the world is. And so it's kind of like a little bit of a trick, like, oh, I'll show up for the group and then I'll go back to my normal life. And then it's like, wait a minute, they're the same.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, life is still happening, and I'm in the group, just in life in the group at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a fantastic conversation about this time last year with Derek Mason on the podcast, and Derek was introduced to the principles while he was in prison,
Mm,
and he noticed that his perception of his existence in prison changed in the run up to going to the group session that he was at, and that was something that caught his imagination. But he also then saw other people that were going there, moving around, looking lighter. Like, whoa, what's going on here? We're not even there yet, and we're feeling better. What's this about? And it's so funny how we can attribute certain experiences to particular activities or places or people, and completely innocently believe that it's that stuff rather than
mhm,
it's the thinking that we have about that stuff. There's a grain of truth in the stuff being important because it's part of the memory, part of the thought that's going on, but it's not where the magic happens. The magic's happening inside us. The feelings are being generated as a result of the thoughts that we're experiencing, and those two go hand in glove. It's exciting to see when people when the sort of penny starts dropping for people and they go, oh wow, so this is available to me all the time if I'm open to it. Nice.
mhm.
Let's see what possible looks like. And they go out not knowing quite what to do, which is fine. I don't think any of us quite know what to do. But showing up going, well, what is possible? What is here for us? What can I learn today? And it sounds and for me feels a lot more liberating than thinking I've got to carry around a whole lot of concepts to be able to make sure that my world runs the way I want it to.
Yeah, I can give a very literal example
Go for it.
of this like unlocking feeling of like noticing something that you didn't notice before that's always been there that you just didn't notice. Like that's one of the funny things about um the three principles understanding is like, oh yeah, like everything is always there. You're just not noticing it. It's like, wait, what? Like isn't the universe existing in such a way where the things that aren't here really aren't here? Well, no, not exactly. And the example that I was alluding to, is that for about a year, maybe a little longer, I was suffering from maybe like an extreme word choice, but definitely bothered by uh like seemingly uncontrollable incessant movement. So I would always like bounce my leg or, make my feet go back and forth while I'm sitting or kick them or, like just do anything, like just move my body in some way. Like I just felt like I had all of this extra energy and it was really kind of irksome. I would pace. So I'd like always be moving back and forth or walking, at its peak. I checked on my phone like 40,000 steps a day, which is crazy. So over the course of like 3 days or over the course of 4 days, I walked 3 marathons. Like I really moved a lot. And I was talking on Heartfelt Presence. No, this isn't sponsored; it's free. Um, with another one of the hosts, and he talked about the book he read, which was Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and his takeaway was that you can calibrate your intensity, and it's not like a switch that you can flip, but it is like a dimmer that you can just turn and twist and modulate. And I just felt myself exhale in this really like lowering energy kind of way, and my legs stopped moving. And I was like, where's the catch? What's the trick? How is this possible? And it was what the three principles does, more or less, and that was just another manifestation of it, where you just realize that there's another option, there's another choice point, there's another ability that is innate.
Mhm.
It wasn't him doing it, like I ultimately was the one who can turn the knob down. Like it was completely within my right to say, oh, that's ridiculous. Whatever you're talking about is irrelevant and boring and silly. But instead, it just landed because I was receptive. I was
Mhm.
open. I was showing up, TM. And yeah, that was arguably one of the more magical moments in my life, where it was so crystal clear that understanding was happening.
Mhm.
And that's what we talk about in the three principles community, is that we're not learning a technique like, starting to meditate. We're just developing an understanding and cultivating and nurturing an understanding of what life is. And as a result, everything else is like that, to use the same words, unfolding domino effect. It's the second order implications of understanding. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing really more rich than that. And,
Mm.
I could just eat it up, and, it's abundant, present, infinite. And yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. The reason why the focus of this podcast is on insight and how we learn from it, you've just described there. That is a prime example of something that just went, oh wow, yeah, that makes sense, and a lot of stuff shifted and changed instantly because you saw something differently. Now, there's that capacity lies in the heart of every single one of us, has done from the point of us coming into existence, and it's how we've learned everything we've learned to date. So that the sort of the bizarreness of the principles is they're there anyway in full operation, whether we're aware of it or not. And so bizarrely, they aren't really the answer, but actually understanding how we operate is really, really helpful. We tend to be less freaked out by things when we know how they work. And when we are unsure of stuff, we feel a bit uncomfortable to the point that we get curious and go and check it out, or we ignore it and feel worse about it and sort of put the blinkers on. And at some point, in theory, our curiosity will kick in and go, right, okay, what's going on here then? Is this true? Whatever that direction might be. At which point we already start to see things subtly differently than we had at the point we were all caught up in it. So yeah, it's one of those weird ones where the principles are everything and they're also nothing. They are made up. They are a way of describing something that isn't properly describable. We have all experienced beautiful sunsets and been absolutely rubbish at being able to describe them. Can't touch the beauty and the majesty of what we've seen. We know other people can imagine that for themselves, but we know we're not doing any justice to it. And the principles are sort of that in the middle. They're the sort of, this is the best we've got at the moment for describing something that is inside everybody, that is in the makeup of every human being, and lies at the heart of their capacity to see things freshly in any moment, whatever that might be, that allows them to grow and move on.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you pointed to something where, like, the ability to just experience life is, I mean, kind of the point, I guess. Like, just being able to have I guess, consciousness, and that is the experience of life. And the other thing that came to mind was that you asked sort of like how my life has changed post understandings. And one of them is that negativity just does not have the same valence anymore. So, like, when I would feel, you know, unpleasant emotions, it would be something that I'd get really sucked into and defined by. And, that would be kind of like what life is this negativity. And I've been as low as you can get. And I won't go into detail necessarily, but I've been low, low, low places. And now when I feel that energy, even like trending in that direction, I have extra tools to just be aware of it and to say, like, this is an opportunity to see how there is like some, to quote someone else, like a cosmic joke that I haven't been let in on. And there's just some misunderstanding that's playing out. And I can just hold that very lightly and allow that to just play itself out and exist.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's a very like a leveling up kind of an experience to have, where you feel like you just have an extra vantage point to look at your life through, because it is just understanding. So, yeah.
That's cool. Devon, thank you so much for coming. It's been lovely to spend this time with you today. Good luck with showing up and how that unfolds. And for the listeners, I will put a link to Heartfelt Presence if you're curious in the notes to this podcast. And I tend to be there most Mondays and Fridays at 1400 hours UK time. Not all the time, but as best I can. And fingers crossed, we'll be seeing Devon taking some slots as well at some stage. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.